Good evening. Thank you, Rabbi Kraft, for your kind introduction. A special thank you. Please tell me I'll call back later. I'm not available right now. A special thank you to Rabbi Kiva Rottenberg as well for inviting me to share with you this evening, and to Gateways for co-sponsoring this evening. The topic you've asked me to speak about is the anatomy of hatred. So I'm actually going to ask you to help me along over here. I know there's a larger audience, but help me. If we had to define the mechanics of hatred, put hatred oh, sorry. Good? Okay. If we were to put hatred under the microscope and identify what is the molecular structure, what are the parts, the mechanics that equals hatred? Is this just an emotion, a feeling? Or is there a formula that I really have to play out? There are parts that when you add this ingredient and this ingredient will equal this result that we call hatred. And thereby hopefully get a grip on what is it that triggers the hatred in my heart, and how can I take control of it if I really want to? How can I learn to not live with hatred in my heart? So I'm going to ask for your help. What might be the makor, the genesis, the starting point? Where does hatred really begin? What is the cause of hatred? Any suggestions?
Low self-esteem.
Anger, low self-esteem, jealousy. Excellent. Anything else? Fear. So there are a number of ingredients that we're mentioning over here. Let's try and figure this out together. Why is jealousy something that will feed into hatred? Why? Let's figure this out. What is jealousy? Am I happy with what I have if I'm jealous of what you have in terms of your intelligence, or your good looks, or the shape of your body, or your beautiful husband, wife, children? If I'm jealous of you, then what's missing for me? For those still awake. What am I missing? I'm missing out on happiness. I don't have what you have. So there's something in that statement that says, I should have what you have. Does that make sense? But is that accurate? Is that logical? Should I have what you have? Is it possible that if I had your spouse, I thought it was difficult until now. Oh no! I have a friend who lost 3 wives, and he went on the anniversary of the passing of his 3rd wife to the graveyard, where a close friend of him came along, and he said, you know, here's buried my 1st wife. He said, oh, I'm really sorry. What did she die of? She died of poisonous mushrooms. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Whoa. And buried next to her is my 2nd wife. Whoa, what did she die of? She also died of poisonous mushrooms. Oh, I guess the 3rd wife also died of poison? No, she died of strangulation. Strangulation? How did that happen? She refused to take the poisonous mushrooms. Just joking, just joking. Is it possible that when I think I would be so much happier if I had that person's spouse, or if I had children like your children, oh, I'd be so much happier. But is it possible that it's a totally different combination? That married to that person would bring out a completely different part of me, personality in me, and that maybe it's not really a right fit? So is it possible that jealousy, which feeds into hatred, I'm upset that I don't have what you have, and then I become jealous and maybe even hate you for your intelligence, your superior looks? Is it possible that that jealousy is founded on the wrong predicate, the wrong assumption? That if I were to have what you have, I would be happier than I am now? Is it possible that that's a terrible mistake? And that the jealousy I allow to continue is feeding into the hatred, resentment, bitterness? One of you mentioned anger. Let's look at that for a moment. When I'm angry, why does that lead to hatred? Let's figure this out. What's wrong with being angry? I'm upset with you right now, and I'm getting upset. In fact, I'm getting really upset with you. You have no idea. I gave you the best years of my life. Now, and I start accusing you, or I compare you. You're just like your mother. No, sorry, not you personally. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to wake you up. Sorry. So, and I start comparing you to other people. When I show anger towards another person, and that feeds into my hatred, what is the problem with the anger? Why is that a mistake on my part? See, what is anger? What does anger say? It's very similar to jealousy. Anger says, life is going the way I want it to? No. Is my health, wealth going the way I want it to? No. My mother-in-law, sorry, just swallowing. My mother-in-law, is she behaving the way I want her to? No. My father, my brother, my sister. Every time I am angry about someone or something, what am I really saying? That this is not going the way I want it to. So that builds up resentment, bitterness. Maybe anger will turn into hatred. So hatred has some interesting ingredients. Jealousy is one of them. Anger is another. When I'm hateful, what will it do about the way I speak about you if I hate you? And someone mentions your name. Will I say kind words, or am I much more likely to speak derogatory words? Bad mouth, lashon hara. So if we start to look at this, hatred contains many areas which are feeding into the hatred. Low self-esteem. Why should low self-esteem feed into hatred? What's the logic? Any suggestions? Someone mentioned low self-esteem. Why does low self-esteem, why is it one of the ingredients that feeds, perpetuates, keeps the hatred growing? If a person is very happy with themselves and someone else is different to them, hurts their feelings, but they've got a strong self-esteem, are they going to carry it with them? Or if it really bothers them, they'll communicate with that person. Why did you say that about me? I'm curious to understand. Why did you hurt my feelings when you claimed that I said or did such and such? So low self-esteem is much more likely to feed into feelings of resentment, bitterness, hatred. Where does hatred start? Is it an emotion? Where does it begin? Is it a physical action? Is it possible that even violence is the result of hatred? How about wars? Domestic violence, God forbid, in a home. Is that possible that it starts with hatred? But what's the starting point of hatred? Where does that begin? There are three parts to a human being. The way we speak, the way we act, the way we think. Which one of those would you say feeds the most into hatred? The way we think. Thinking is the key. Controlled thinking is what we're really talking about tonight. You know, the Maimonides, he has an entire section called the laws of thinking. It's not usually translated that way. Hilchot de'ot, the laws of thinking. How I should fashion, shape my mind, my attitude. What thoughts I should have, what thoughts I should not have. And one of the mitzvot, one of the instructions listed in the laws of thinking is how to control hatred. How to control love. Love starts in my mind. Hatred really begins over here. The feelings of hatred I have towards you are the result of what I say in my mind about you. If I hate my spouse, I hate my mother, I hate my children, God forbid, I hate my spouse, I hate life. I have to think thoughts that feed into what we call hatred. What type of thoughts do I have to think? Negative thoughts. We're getting a little bit closer now. Hatred is any negative thought that is not controlled, has the seed of hatred in it. Any negative thinking has the seed of hatred in it. Could I hate myself? Have you ever met someone who hates themselves? And they put themselves down? Even when they do something right, they still put themselves down. Low self-esteem. Self-hate comes from where? Is it body language alone? Or is it what I say about myself in my mind? I'm stupid. I can't. I'm not successful. I'm not in control of my mouth. I'm not in control of my body. I'm not in control of chocolate. Why are you laughing? No, I just recovered from chocolate rehab. I was there till last night. I was 3 months in chocolate rehab. And did I tell you this last time? No? Chocolate rehab is a very interesting place. I was there for 3 months, and there was a gentleman in the corner there meditating the whole time I was there. And when they released me last night, I had to find out before I left, what was he saying? He was meditating the whole time. So I put my ear up right against his mouth, and this is what he was saying. God, if there's no chocolate in heaven, I'm not going. So you meet a lot of interesting people in chocolate rehab. Just as they released me, I had to fill in a form that demonstrates that I was, completely recovered. So the first question they asked me was my definition for ecstasy. So I said, that's easy. My definition of ecstasy is I just finished a whole box of chocolates. And I peel off the bottom layer, and it reveals another layer. He said, get back inside. Anyway, let's say I don't control myself when it comes to chocolate, and I finally make a commitment. That's it. I'm not having more than 1 chocolate box a day. Let's just imagine I control myself. How do we feel about ourselves when we're in control? How do we feel? We feel really good. How do we feel if I had an opportunity to hurt someone with words and I controlled myself? Not out of fear, but out of self-control. How do we feel about ourselves? Do we feel like, oh, what an opportunity I missed. I could have badmouthed this person so much. Oh, that's terrible. Or do I feel really good that I took control of myself? How do we feel when we say no to an extra cookie? An extra piece of cake? How do we feel about ourselves when we push ourselves? I'm going to exercise. I'm going to learn a little bit more and feed my mind. We feel in control of our lives. Hatred, anger, jealousy is all about being out of control over here, in my mind, where I let my thoughts control me, instead of me control my thoughts. How can I do that? Let's try and understand this a little deeper. What's the downside of my hatred towards you? Let's figure this out. Is a jealous person a happy person? When I have hatred and resentment in my heart, am I happy? Of course not. If I'm bitter and I'm holding grudges against you for a long time, weeks, months, years, decades, am I a happy person? If I'm unhappy in this marriage, what thoughts do I have to have about my spouse? I have to think what it is I don't like about you. And the longer the list, the more I will resent, feel bitter, hate. A happy marriage is the exact opposite. The more I think thoughts about what I like about you, what I appreciate about you, what qualities are in your personality, the more I think positive, the good things in your life, the more I will feel love towards you. So hatred is a choice. It's not what you do to me that makes me hate me. It's what I do inside of my mind in response to what you say, do, and think. Let me ask you a question. How many of us know our child so well that we can be 100% accurate that every time we say a judgment about that child, it's completely correct? Do we have all the information we need to know to be absolutely certain that my impression of my spouse, my child, whoever it is I'm starting to feel ill feelings towards, do I have all the information I need to know to be absolutely certain that my thoughts about you are totally accurate? Or is it possible that I never know the full story? Could we raise our own child in our home and not realize till they're 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, almost 2 decades, what this child went through in first grade, second grade, third grade, how they didn't get along with a certain teacher, or how they were failing a subject and they were struggling but they wanted to do well but found it very hard? Is it possible I won't realize and learn who my child really is till 15 or 20 years later? True or false? Absolutely true. And this child is living in my home. What is hatred? The negative thoughts I have about anybody, including myself, especially myself and my spouse and my children. And what God wants me to do is take control of my thoughts and ask the following question. Do I really know you so well that when I think negative thoughts that feed my negative feelings of resentment, bitterness, hatred, can I be certain that my impression of you is totally accurate? Or is it possible that if I were to be compassionate, less judgmental, and ask you, what are you struggling with that you're failing in the subject? So Moshe comes home one day, Dad! Moshe, what's the matter? Dad, I failed math. Look, son, how many times I've told you, you've got to be positive in life. Dad, I'm positive I failed math. All right, son, what did you get? 24 out of 100? Yeah. What do I work so hard for? You got 24 out of 100? That's 8 levels below pathetic. Look, son, if you get a pass mark, like a 51, I'll be really happy and proud about you, son. You know what? Here's the problem. Am I asking an intelligent question by saying, son, just get 51? You know what? You'll make me so proud. Is that really true? Or is the problem that I don't ask, son, you got 24 out of 100. Let me ask you a simple question, son. Was that your best? Did you try hard? Oh, you did? Then you know what? I count that as an A. But let's figure out, if you're failing, do you want to do better? Of course, Dad, of course I do. So, son, how can we help you? What is it that you're struggling with? True story. Kid was missing from school for 3 weeks, had scarlet fever. When he comes back to school, the teacher went ahead in the curriculum with the rest of the class, and the kid was way behind and couldn't follow because all the units of math were dependent on what he learnt the last 3 weeks. And the kid was stimulated or bored. Became a discipline problem. Eventually got kicked out of the class. Here's the problem. The child's behavior on the outside is not the reason for me to think negative about the kid. Unless I have asked a very simple question. What's behind the behavior? Why are you upset? Because if I just read the outside, I'm not learning what's going on inside the child's mind. And if I easily judge my child, my spouse, whoever it is, and I'm not compassionate, I'm not asking, what are you struggling with? What's difficult in your marriage? What's difficult with your teacher? What's difficult with this subject? Do you need a private tutor? Do you need help at home? Do you need to switch to a parallel class? Do you need to go into the resource room? There are so many ways I could deal with this, but instead, what do I count? Not the 24 that he did get, I count all the points that he didn't. True story. Lady comes up to me, 54 years old. And she told me that when she was 16, she came home very proud. She remembers exactly where she was sitting, where her father was sitting. He was sitting on the bench in front of the piano when she showed him her chemistry test. She got 99 out of 100. And guess what Dad said to his daughter? What happened to the one? What happened to that one that would have bridged 99 to 100? This girl was so devastated because she realized, you know what? She really has to get 100 to please Father. And she carried on trying. How hard do you think it is to consistently get 100 out of 100? That's extremely hard. She dropped out of high school. She comes to me, this is a few weeks ago in North New Jersey. She comes to me and let me tell you, she says, I'm 54 years old. And my father, on his dying bed, I know that I disappointed him in life because I never went to university. So I had to have a healing conversation with him and tell him how I just could not live up to his expectation. And I reminded him of this story. And he remembered the story vividly. And he looks at me and said, I cannot believe you thought I was serious. I was only joking. Now let me ask you, this poor kid suffered! Not for years, decades, but it wasn't all those years she suffered alone. The ill feeling inside of her that she disappointed her father, never went to college, never graduated, and therefore felt she was not very intelligent. And all that was bechinam, for nothing. What wasted effort of resentment, bitterness, and anger that she carried with her all those years, and then Dad clarified in one sentence, but I never meant it. How could you take me seriously that I only cared about the one? But the poor darling daughter was his princess. She loved him so much, she did not want to hurt or disappoint him. She took him seriously. Is it possible that hatred is very simply inaccurate? Hatred is inaccurate. It means I've got the wrong picture about you. Hatred means I don't understand you. Hatred is from fear, jealousy. I just don't realize that if I were to know what you go through, I would not be judging you so quickly. I'll never forget a story told by Miriam Adahan, where she had a lady come to her and tell her, I was online in the checkout counter in a grocery store in Israel. And it happened to be the lady at the counter, the cashier, she was very curt, short, and didn't treat me very well. So I got upset with the cashier, and instead of her apologizing, the cashier got even more abrupt. So she decided to go to the back of the store and complain to the manager about his cashier. And she did. She tells the cashier, she tells the manager, your cashier doesn't know how to give customer service. Very abrupt. And you know what the manager said to her? I think you should know that this lady just yesterday returned to work from sitting Shiva for 7 days. Her 17-year-old son died in a helicopter collision in the Israeli army. Let me ask you, do you think this changed her feelings towards this woman? Do you think she stayed with her judgment? Or the judgment of, I'm your customer, I'm bringing you your parnasah, I'm giving you your livelihood. This is how you talk to a customer? Is that how she continued? Or do you think the judgment she had for her was completely switched to compassion, love? Her heart went out to this woman and she hugged her. Is it possible that hatred is always the wrong picture? Comes along our sages and tell us, why was the first temple destroyed? What was the reason? Why was the first temple destroyed? Gilu Arayut, adultery. Number 2, Avodah Zarah, idol worship. Number 3, Shfichut Damim, taking other people's lives, murder. All these are thoughts, words, or actions. They're all actions. And how many years did it take for the temple to be rebuilt? 70 years. So the Jewish people corrected the mistake that caused the destruction, and it took 70 years. Why was the second temple destroyed? Sinat Hinam, which translates very simply as Sinah, hatred, Hinam, for nothing. Hatred for nothing. Hatred does not exist. It's a lie. It's an inaccuracy. When I hate another Jew, when I hate another person because of my thoughts, these are the thoughts I'm entertaining. Do I really know everything about you? How many times I would go into a therapy session and learn, oh, that's what you suffered when your parents raised you. And now I understand my spouse. Let me ask you honestly, how many families are truly functional? Someone once asked me, what's your definition for a dysfunctional family? That's easy. The definition of a dysfunctional family is any family with more than one member. Is it possible that if I were to know what my child is struggling with, the difficulties my spouse has in conquering jealousy, if only I knew how when she was raised in her home, that her parents favored her against her older sister. And her older sister was a really terrible witch in her behavior towards my wife. Had I only known how much my spouse tried so hard to endear her parents to her, and yet the parents still favored the other daughter, who was a witch to her younger sister. Is it possible that if I were to understand where this person is coming from, that instead of reacting, having negative thoughts and then feelings towards them, instead of judging, I would be compassionate, loving. Sinat Chinam destroyed the Second Temple. How long did it take till it was rebuilt? Still not rebuilt. What does that mean? The problem that caused the destruction still exists. And where does the problem start? In what I say in my mind about me, about you, about my child, about my spouse, about the community, about my neighbors, about my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, my friends, my co-workers, my boss. Did we cover everybody? Miss anyone out? What I say about you in my mind is everything. And if I'm not aware about what I say about you, that's where I need to start taking care of anger, resentment, bitterness, jealousy. Let me share with you how the world we're living in today feeds anger, resentment, jealousy, and hatred. Let me share with you where it feeds into it. In the world of the media, television, what does TV stand for? Do you know? Ask an Ashkenazi, you know what TV stands for? Time wasted. In the world of the media, commercials, advertising, what are they selling? Are they selling reality? Are they selling intrinsic virtues, intrinsic values of what a human being truly is? Or are they selling jealousy? Think about it. Think about it. What is the message in every single commercial? You can't possibly be satisfied, happy until you have this product. And then when you eat, drink, drive, vacate, when you wear this label, when you're this shape, when you do this exercise program, when you're on this diet, then you will be happy. And therefore, if I see someone who's got that, how should I feel towards them? Oh, you've got that and I haven't. Look at your shape. Oh. Look at the label. Look what you can afford. Look at your zip code. Oh. The media literally plays into my mind that is constantly bombarding me again and again and again. Think, not positive, but think what you don't have. Think what others have in comparison to you. And they are training me to think negatively about what I do have. This is not good enough. I'll give you an example. A few months ago, this cell phone here starts vibrating. And I get a text message. And it says the following. For only $5 a month, we'll call you every hour on the hour so that people around you think you've got friends. How do they get my number? No, don't go there, don't go there. What's the assumption in this commercial? What's the assumption? I don't have friends. What's the solution to my problem? Be such a nincompoop that I go out and pay $5 a month for a computer. Oh, excuse me, there's a friend. Oh, a click, another friend. You know, what's going in through my brain when I pick up the phone on the hour and a computer talks to me and there's no one there and you think I've got friends? What's going on in my brain? What am I saying to myself? Am I saying this is wonderful, at last I've got friends, or am I fooling myself? Am I at least where I was before I fell into this trap, or am I much worse off? How am I worse off? How? Besides the $5 a month, how am I worse off? Because every time I pick up this phone and there's no one there, what am I actually saying to myself? I have no friends. So what is the message I am repeating and reinforcing every time I pick up the phone? I'm repeating and reinforcing the very problem that I'm paying $5 a month to fix. You hear the problem? The world of the media wants me to believe that if I had your shape, your money, your looks, if I were to afford a car like you, then I would be happy. And therefore, how should I feel about what I've got now? Positive or negative? I should feel negatively, think negatively about who I am and what I've got. It's worse than that. Let me share with you. In the educational system, I want to share how deep-rooted hatred, resentment, bitterness is built up in a child over hours, days, weeks, months, years, into 1.5 to 2 decades, where the message is repeated again and again and again. And what's the message? Not to be happy with me. Listen carefully. In every single classroom you ever attended, in elementary, secondary school, high school, was there at least one straight-A student? True or false? What's going through the minds of every other kid in their minds? What are they saying? Who will be a candidate for success in life? Who? Out of all the kids in the class? The straight-A student. Here's the problem. Is it possible that many of the other students are really struggling to do well? True or false? Would you say at least 20, perhaps 30 or 40% of the class is really trying to do well? True or false? And yet, if I'm not a straight-A student, what's going on in my mind, and what is the policy? Not this is written anywhere, but what's the mindset of the teachers and the school? Not that this is not overt, it's not spelt out. But who is the real candidate for success in life? The straight-A student. Here's the problem. In real life, and I'll define real life, marriage. In real life, I have a friend who told me his wife is mamash an angel. Really an angel. And my friend said back to him, "You're so lucky, mine's still alive." Just joking, just joking, just joking. I'll get the husbands in a minute, don't worry. So, in real life, what's real life marriage? In real life, raising children. In real life, workplace. Getting along with other people in the workplace. Earning a living. In real life, what counts the most? How brilliant the mind is? Which universities this kid went to? What grades he got? What his report card said? Or how he got along with other people, how he respects other people, how he controls anger, jealousy, resentment, bitterness, hatred, and turns it into sensitivity, respect, appreciation, gratitude, understanding, empathy, sensitivity, love. Ooh, long list. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you, in this room there are about, Rabbi Croft, how many people approximately? About, how many? 400? It's about 400 people. And the average age is about 25. Is that right, ladies? About 25? About 25, okay. So what's 400 times 25? Someone do the math for me quickly? We can take a vote if you prefer. What's 400 times 25? 420 times 25 is 10,000. In this room, in this Bet HaKnesset, represented here is 10,000 years of a cumulative life experience. Do you know that? In this room, there is 2 times the amount of human history in this room alone. You have 10,000 years of a cumulative life experience. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you the following question. In marriage and raising children, in the workplace, what will count the most? How similar you are to your spouse, to your kids, to the co-worker, to your boss, and less different? Is that what's going to count the most? Or how well you get along with the differences? How you respond to the differences? Ladies and gentlemen, how many people vote that life and happiness in life, shalom, peace in life, removing hatred in life, resentment, bitterness in life is all about being the same as each other. Less different and more the same. How many people would vote for that? 0. You have 10,000 years of cumulative life experience. And who votes? It's number 2. Life is about how well we get along with the differences. How we respond to differences. Will I get angry with you when you talk to me about you're just like your mother? Will I get angry with you when you blame me? You know what? This kid is your fault. Will I get angry with you when you tell me the reason our finances are in the bits is you and your crazy ideas of how to make money? When you put me down, how do I respond? Do I pull out my list of your crimes against me? I might have a longer and better memory than you do. And now we're really in trouble. How will I respond to differences? With sarcasm, sharp words, put downs? Will I make comparisons? Will I insult? Will I hurt you? Hatred is what I say in my mind about you. Will I be compassionate, loving? Will I be respectful? Will I be patient? Hatred is a choice. It's not what people say or do that makes me hate you. It's what I tell myself about you that will decide whether I'll love or not love you. Talking about perfect spouses, I actually met the perfect husband last week. I play soccer on Wednesday nights, and in the locker room, the cell phone goes off, so one of the guys picks it up. Hello? Oh, darling, I'm so glad you picked up. Look, I'm in the mall. Oh, I saw this gorgeous leather jacket, and it's in sale for $1,000. What do you say? Get it. Oh, darling, thank you so much. Listen, before we hang up, I was on the way to the mall, and I passed a Mercedes dealership. Oh my gosh, the new CLR 5000. It's on sale for $65,000. What do you say? Is it fully loaded? Yes. Okay, get it. Oh, darling, don't put the phone down. You remember that house we fell in love with, and they pulled it off the market? It's back on the market, and it's been reduced to 1.3 million. What do you say? Make them an offer for 1.2. Oh, darling, thanks, bye. Bye. Now, how do you think we feel when we see a husband who is so generous? Everything, she gets everything she asks for. Do you know what he says to us? Whose cell phone is this? There's no perfect husband. There's no perfect spouse. They don't exist. The only thing that exists is what I say about my life, my wife, my finances. Where is God in this equation? Is life all about getting a better deal than someone else? I hope I have a better family than you, a happier family, a more healthy family. Is life really about me getting ahead? Or is life about pluses and minuses? And when there are pluses, health is good, wealth is good, spouse is good, house is good, children are good, I'm grateful. And when it's not so good, I'm going to be grateful anyway. I'm going to be loving, respectful, trusting, giving, generous, understanding. We know the answer. Life is about how we handle the differences. And hatred is always chinam, for nothing. Hatred has no place. There's a couple of exceptions in the Torah where someone has gone so far that I have a mitzvah to hate that person. But there's very unusual circumstances. A missionary, for example. A person has a mitzvah to wipe out the nation of Amalek. But besides these exceptions, where they have a track record of providing extreme negativity to pull people away from Torah, people away from reality, outside of that, God wants me to know that hatred is a choice of what I say about myself and others that's negative. And He wants me to know that it's always inaccurate. In the same section of the Torah, chapter 19 of Leviticus, Vayikra, the Torah tells me one pasuk away from each other. Lo tisna et achicha bilvavecha. Don't hate your brother in your heart. Oh, in your heart, in your thoughts, in your emotions. One verse later, I'm told, Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Love others like you love yourself. What happens if I don't love myself? How much do I have to love you? If I hate myself, how much do I have to love you now? What happens if I'm suicidal? How much do I have to love you now? I once knew a guy, comes out the 26th story of a skyscraper, and outside the elevator, there's a rope tied to the door next to the elevator, and it goes all the way to the end of the corridor. And there's a man at the end of the corridor tying the rope around his waist, and he starts to hang himself out the window. So my friend goes up to him and says, excuse me, what are you doing? He says, man, I'm trying to commit suicide. You know what, look, I don't want to interfere with your free will, but let me give you an education. You're supposed to put the rope around your neck. So he said, I tried that, but I couldn't breathe. You know, suicide is a very serious crime. And yet, if I take the Torah literally, love your neighbor as you love yourself. If I am, God forbid, suicidal, I'm allowed to kill you in the name of the Torah. I'll arrive in Beit Din the next morning in the court of law and they say, why did you kill your neighbor? He says, well, I love him like I love myself and I'm suicidal. It's not going to work. So what does the Torah mean? Oh, what do I have to do in order to love you? Love me. And to love me, what do I have to do in my mind? I have to notice the good in me. I have to practice saying, I love me because, and look for the virtues, the qualities. Be compassionate with myself, loving to myself, to help me more able to love you. Now here's a question. You hate someone who really hurt your feelings. And you open up Leviticus chapter 19, verse 17 and 18, and it says there, don't hate other people. Oh, okay, I have to stop hating you. That's not easy. Read the next verse. Love them like you love yourself. Oh, please, God, do me a favor. Could you put don't hate somewhere in Genesis and put love that person that you hate somewhere in Deuteronomy and Devarim and give me some time to heal? How can you put one verse right next to the other? You hear the problem? God tells me, don't hate, and the next verse tells me to love the person. But give me some time to stop hating this person. How does God expect me to just switch from hatred to love? Look at the words in between the two verses. If I see someone or thinks someone said or did something wrong to me, what am I supposed to do? What mitzvah do I have? The mitzvah of tochacha. Tochacha, the Christians butchered this word. They claim their translation of the word tochacha is reprove, rebuke, reprimand. It doesn't mean any of those words. Tochacha means clarify. Rambam, Maimonides says, if someone hurts me, what should I say to that person? My friend, in a gentle voice, soft voice, my friend, why did you hurt me? Ask him. Now, why am I asking him? What's the assumption if I'm asking my friend why he hurt me? Why don't I just say, you are such a... I can't stand your guts! You hurt my feelings! Now, of course, I'm just joking. Of course, I don't mean this seriously, and I don't practice like this at all with anybody. How is it that I assume my thoughts about you are correct? Comes along Torah and tells me, I have to ask you, why did you hurt me? Why am I putting in a question? Why can't I just accuse you? Why? What opportunity am I giving you if I ask the child, why were you so rude? Why were you so upset? Why did you have a tantrum? I give them a chance to explain themselves. What vote of confidence, what level of trust am I demonstrating when I say to my child, to my spouse, you must be hurting. Help me to understand, what did I say or do that is hurting you so badly? When we ask a question, how is it that you're saying this about me, accusing me, comparing me? Is it possible that, number one, they're getting a chance to explain themselves? Number two, possibly apologize. Number three, justify. There's so many other possibilities they might come up with. But if I accuse you, if I just say outright, you know what, you are so pathetic. That is ridiculous. I work so hard and this is what you do in school? Instead of asking, are you struggling? Are you having a hard time with a teacher? True story. A kid on the first day of school. I have a friend who told me this. First day of school, his teacher laughed at a joke that a friend said in teasing him. And because the teacher laughed at that joke, this boy shut down the whole year. Wouldn't learn from that teacher. Another true story. I have a neighbor who told me he was a child born in Germany right after the war. Came to America, and in first grade, the first week in school, he was told to translate the words. So he's reading words in Hebrew, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe lemor, and God said to Moses saying, and he translates it into English. That's the language his parents spoke at home. But because he came from Germany, he mixed in two German words. And it sounded so funny that the teacher burst out laughing. And that boy said to me, he shut down. He's today in his 50s. Said he never learnt again. Never learnt. Only recently, he went to a Rabbi Schlesingeshire in Monsey, and he's turned back onto learning. You see, is it possible that if I were to try to understand my kid, instead of, what's the matter with you? You've got a brain, why don't you apply yourself? Is that a fair question? Or should I really be asking, you know what? You have such a good mind. If you're not learning well, there must be a reason. What is it that is hurting you? Or that you don't like about the learning? Or is it the class? Is it your friends? Tochacha means clarify. Ask. Why did you say this? Not as an accusation. Look how God deals with Adam, the first man. When Adam ate from the tree, did God scream at Adam, you ate from the tree, I told you not to eat from it. Did he scream at him? No. What did God say to Adam? Adam, did you eat from the tree that I asked you not to eat from? Now why didn't God just zap him? Why didn't he just wipe him off the face of the earth? Why did God ask him a question which God knew the answer to? What was the answer God was hoping Adam would give? I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I can't believe I did that. I'm so sorry. But what was his answer? Are you sure? That woman! I'm sorry, then wake you up again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You remind me, a few months ago I was in South New Jersey, and I was in the old people's home, and the average age in the audience was 107. Actually, there was one lady there, she was 104 years old, and we asked her, what's special about your age? So she said, no peer pressure. So they wired me up to this very sensitive microphone, because some of the people were hard of hearing, and my voice was going around the whole auditorium, and there was a gentleman in the front row who was snoring away, was fast asleep, and it was so sensitive that it was picking up the snore going around the whole auditorium. So I said to the guy next to him, give him a nudge and wake him up. He says, Rabbi, you got him to sleep, you wake him up. Anyway, so Adam, instead of admitting his mistake, blames Ha'isha, that woman. Who's he blaming? Asher natata imadi, that you gifted to stand by me. Ooh. Who is Adam blaming? He's blaming God. So how does God deal with Adam? What does he say to him? I'll deal with you later. And he turns to Eve. Now, God doesn't scream at Eve and say, why did you eat from the tree? I told you not to eat from the tree. You know what he says to her? Eve, why did you eat from the tree? Now, he knew the reason, but what was he hoping she would say? I'm sorry. I can't believe it. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I'll never do it again. Now, what was her answer? That snake, Hishiani, persuaded me. Have you ever wondered why God did not ask the snake? The snake had no legs to stand on. Okay, didn't have a leg to stand on. So God is inviting Adam to admit his mistake. He's inviting Eve to admit her mistake. What's the purpose of God creating different parents, different spouses, difficult siblings, different community, different neighbors, different co-workers, boss, everyone I encounter is difficult and different. Why? Because God is testing my thoughts. What will I say back? God wants me to love you, but how will I love you? If I'm hurt by you, He wants me to ask you, so that you have a chance to either apologize or explain. Because is it possible I don't have all the information? And if I don't have all the information, to be absolutely certain that my hateful, resentful, bitter thoughts and feelings I have towards you are accurate, if I don't have all the information, what should I do? Ask. Find out. Comes along the Torah and tells me another mitzvah in the same chapter. B'tzedek tishbot amitecha. If I see you do something wrong, and there's any possibility that what I see with my eyes, and I'm certain that what you did was wrong, if there's any possibility of giving it an interpretation, an explanation that explains why you did the wrong thing. Which interpretation does the Torah obligate me to select? To be certain that I'm right, that you did that wrong thing and you are wrong for doing it? Or if there's any possible explanation, I have to select that explanation that puts you in a good light, favorable judgment. Which of the two does the Torah require of me? Number 2. B'tzedek tishbot amitecha. Righteously judge your people. This is not just to judges. This is me, because I'm judging you all the time. I'll never forget an amazing story. Rabbi Shimon Schwab, the leader of the congregation of the German Jews in Washington Heights. He used to be the Rav of Baltimore many years ago. And on one occasion, he was on a bus from Baltimore to New York, and it broke down on the highway about 2 o'clock in the morning. And all the passengers had to descend, and it was a few hundred yards to a cafe, where they all went inside to the rest area, and he was shocked. There he sees one of his congregants from his kehillah. He's the rabbi of the congregation, and he sees one of his members eating a ham sandwich without a yarmulke. And he says to himself, I can't believe it. This man keeps Shabbat. I know him for many years. How can he not be keeping kosher? So he says to himself, I have a mitzvah that if I see someone do something wrong, I should correct them. How am I supposed to correct them? Ask them why they're doing that. But then he said to himself, but the same verse, and it's all in those same verses, chapter 19, verse 17 and 18. If I correct you by asking you why you're doing something wrong, and I do it with anger, or I do it in a way that embarrasses you, am I allowed to correct you? No. So he said to himself, wait a minute, I have a mitzvah. I'm the rabbi of the shul. I have a mitzvah to correct him. But he'll get so embarrassed he might choke on the sandwich. So he said, what should I do? Then he remembered the mitzvah that if there's any explanation that puts someone in a favorable light, I have to choose that explanation over my judgment. And so he decided, I don't know what the reason is, but I know this man for many years, so I'm going to assume he's actually doing the right thing for some odd reason. And he left the cafeteria so that his congregant would not see him and be embarrassed. Next Shabbat, Rabbi Schwab is going to the hospital in Washington Heights, where he would do bi-weekly visits of Bikur Cholim, those who are ill. And he sees on the charts there, this man is in one of the wards. And he discovers that this man has a serious problem. And what's that problem? He has a hole in his liver. And he's been instructed that if he ever has an urge to eat, he must grab the first food that he sees, even if it's not kosher. He must eat immediately. It's life and death. Here's an interesting example of someone that he knew for years. And then, how is he going to explain to himself in his mind that this person is doing something that's okay? Is it possible that if I have more information that will broaden my perspective, I will change my judgment to compassion? Another true story. The Chafetz Chaim, the saintly great Rabbi, Rabbi Yisrael Kagan, was once in a tavern where he saw a clandestine Jew. What was a clandestine Jew? This was a Jew who at the age of 12 was kidnapped by the Russian army and kept in the army for 25 years. And this Russian Jew came from a religious family, no longer religious. That was part of the plan of the Tsarist Russian army. And the Chafetz Chaim saw that this Jew, eating in this tavern where other Jews were eating, ate without a blessing. So he got up to go over to this young soldier and to teach him the importance of saying a blessing. And just as he's about to go, his Talmud, his student says, "Rabbi, I think you should know that that man is a clandestine Jew. He was in the army for 25 years. So the Chafetz Chaim said, "I'm very happy you told me that." So he goes over and sits next to this Russian soldier, Jewish soldier. And instead of correcting him about why didn't you make a blessing on food, do you know what he said? "How is it that after so many years in the Tsarist army, you still eat kosher?" Listen to the switch. A moment ago, he was going to clarify the importance of saying a blessing. And all of a sudden, that's not important. Because if I know where you're coming from, if I have a bigger picture, and I change my judgment to compassion, understanding, sensitivity, empathy, it's a totally different relationship. How do you think the soldier felt, having the saintly sage speak to him this way? You're admiring me. You're understanding what I've been through. And you're not judging me. That is what sinner is. Sinner is the wrong judgment. It's chinam. It has no meaning because I don't have the full picture. I will close. There's much more to be said on this important subject, but what we've summarized is hatred is a choice of what I say to myself in my mind about myself and other people. And God wants me to change that choice. Ask yourselves, who's happy in life? Who are the people that are most happy in life? The ones that carry their grudges, anger, resentment, bitterness, jealousies, hurt feelings towards those who've hurt them in their lives? Or the people who go to sleep at night and say that special tefillah, that special prayer, where I say, Hareni Mochel, behold, Ribbon Shel Olam, Master of the Universe, I forgive everyone who hurt me, whether it was money, whether it was words, whether it was actions. Why? This person doesn't deserve my forgiveness. Why am I forgiving them? Who truly benefits from my forgiving you? Am I letting you off the hook? Or am I able to sleep at night and smile the next day and continue functioning? I'm not forgiving just to let you off the hook. That is a great benefit. But the true benefit is who I become. A more loving, accepting, less judgmental, happier person. I don't carry bitterness in my heart if I'm able to forgive. Hatred, claims our sages, sinah is one of the items, motziin. It removes Adam, a person, from this world. I can literally destroy my life with thoughts of anger, resentment, bitterness and hatred. And God wants me to take control of the only person I'm capable of controlling. There are 3 rings in life. There is engagement ring, the marriage ring, and suffering. The purpose of difficult people and different people is not for me to suffer you. The purpose is for me to become a more loving me. And it's not just about being nice to you, even if I don't think you deserve it. It's about me being able to sleep at night, me being able to be happy, me being able to function. And guess what? How many times in our lives do we wake up 20 years later and realize what our kids went through and say to ourselves, oh, I wish I had read the writing on the wall. How many times do we wake up 30 years later and realize, oh my gosh, I was always judging my parents, and now I see raising kids is not so easy. And I think differently about how my parents were challenged by me. God wants me to save myself all that suffering by recognizing that my hatred is not accurate, it's not real. Life is about appreciation. I will close, and I truly mean it. Sandra turned up to shul last week. I hadn't seen her in a long time. I said, Sandra, I haven't seen you for a while. Is everything okay? No, Rabbi, things are not okay. I said, well, what happened? My husband died. Your husband died? I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Were you there when it happened? Of course I was there. I didn't know. Did he have any parting words? Of course he did. What did he say? His last words to me were, Sandra, put down the gun. I could spend my life in bitterness and anger and resentment. Life is about appreciation, controlling my thoughts. And in that zuchut, in that merit, may be we worthy of seeing the rebuilding of the Bet HaMikdash in our times. Thank you. Amen. Thank you, Rabbi.